y'all. Welcome back to Between a Hot Mess and a Therapist, your not so typical self-help podcast for high responsibility helpers who are tired of pretending they are fine. I'm your host, Shauna Lovin, a seasoned therapist, Texas LPC supervisor, 3-5 emotional projector, and a total tree-hugging auntie rebel who believes healing can be natural. Of course, with compassion and a little cussing. If you're watching on YouTube, listening in your car, hiding in the bathroom at work, or staring at your ceiling at 2 a.m., baby, I already know what kind of week you're having. So grab your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's dive in. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Between a Hot Mess and a Therapist. I'm not sure I've said that in a while, but okay, I digress. I wanted to really start today with something that happened to me back in March. Something that I've been sitting with for a few months now. And honestly, I'm not sure it was something that I was really going to talk about publicly. But because this is one of those grief stories that comes wrapped up in a whole lot of other things. Shame, defensiveness, financial stress, the specific kind of loneliness that happens when you know the stages of grief and you can name every one of them and you're still standing in your kitchen thinking, man, this house feels so different. What is so wrong? Back in March, we lost our Boston Terrier unexpectedly, and I think it actually opened something up in this house and in me, to be honest, in a way that I really wasn't prepared for. Now, we are not a household that has never had a dog. We've always had dogs. They've always been a part of our family. So this is not anything new. But for some reason, this one was different. And I know that I'm a therapist because many of you are too that actually listen. And I know some of y'all are just helpers because you're in the world helping somebody. And I want to talk about the kind of loss that actually what it does to people like us. It's, you know that we are people who typically carry a lot, and we're people who know better and still fall apart anyway. But because knowing the theories of grief does not protect you from feeling it. And one of my mottos around grief is that you logically understand what is happening with the grief and the process, but we are never prepared emotionally on how we are going to respond. So let me tell you what actually happened. Up until this point, our Boston, and we're just going to call him Bullet because that was his name, Deputy Bullet. He had been medically managed for about 4 years-ish. And one early Friday morning at the start of freaking spring break of all days, he started having uncontrollable seizures. And if you've ever watched a dog seize, especially a dog that you love, a dog that is woven into your everyday rhythm of your house, you know is one of the most hard, disorienting things that you could ever watch. The helpless way that you can just stand there and witness. There's nothing that you can do in the moment except for stay close, keep them safe, and wait, and try to breathe so you don't lose yourself. We didn't know this was coming. There wasn't some slow buildup that I can pinpoint in hindsight and say like, oh yeah, that was the sign. That's it. It was very sudden. And then it wasn't just like one thing that happened. And then there was this very specific hell that you go into of emergency room vets, specialty appointments, medications that may or may not work, and the constant low-grade dread of, is today going to be that bad day? And yes, we spent money, real money, I will say. It was unplanned, unbudgeted, and okay, we're moving things around to make this work kind of money. And I don't say that to be as a complaint, but Would I have done it again? Absolutely. But I want to name it because financial stress layered on top of the grief is its own particular weight that nobody warned you about. You're processing the loss and you're also trying to do the math at the same time. While this is exhausting, the math doesn't stop when you actually go to bed. So despite all of it, the vet visits, the medication trials, the monitoring, the adjustments, we still lost him anyway. Here's the part that I want to talk about that doesn't seem to get enough airtime in any time or place. When your dog has uncontrollable seizures, when despite everything you've tried, it kept happening. And there's this voice that starts to come. Maybe it's internal, maybe it's something you just kind of imagine over other people's faces. Or maybe it's actually something that someone said. Even the good intentions that land like an indictment. This voice says something like, did you catch it early enough? Did you do enough? Did you try the right things in the right order? Could better management have changed the outcome? And for those of us who are helpers by profession, people who literally are trained to manage, intervene, support, and problem solve, that voice that we have gets extra loud. Because we are supposed to be good at all of this. We're supposed to know what to do. We're supposed to be that competent one. So when something goes wrong on your watch, the grief gets contained like there's something else. Or like it gets put in this container like it's something other. And the question becomes, did I fail? I want to name that because that is something that matters too. Seizure disorders in dogs, like a lot of other medical conditions, are not fully controllable. You can do everything right. You can follow every protocol. You can spend the money. You can see the specialist. You can give the medications on a schedule to a T. Monitor the triggers, track the episodes, and the body still does what it wants to fucking do. Medicine management is not a mastery. And sometimes, despite good management, things progress in a direction you don't want it to anyway. But here's what we do, especially as helpers. We don't apply the same framework to ourselves that we would immediately offer to a client or the person that we're working with. If a client sat across from us, or at least me, I would say something like, I did everything the doctor said and my dog still got worse. I would not look at them and tell them you failed. I would actually say something like, you showed up, you tried. Outcomes aren't always in our control. But I did not say that to myself, at least not right away. What I did was run this quiet internal review, rechecking the decisions, wondering what other people were thinking, feeling that particular thing that someone asked, what did the vet say? In a way that carries a little too much weight in that question. And that's what happens when helpers do with grief, and that if we don't catch ourselves. We turn it into like this review that we've been having or running through all along. Now, can we go back and talk about the money for a second? Because I think this piece is really underrepresented in how we talk about pet loss. Emergency veterinarian care is fucking expensive. Specialty care is fucking expensive. Medication your dog needs indefinitely it's a recurring line item in your budget. None of this shows up in your budget until it's already happened. You don't plan for these types of things. Yes, you can get insurance. Yes, it can help, but it doesn't fix all of it. There's a particular kind of financial stress that comes from spending significant unplanned money on something that is ultimately you love and you hope will work out, but then you still lose that thing. It's not resentment. It's not a regret. Well, at least not exactly one. It's something more complicated. It's the grief of the loss plus the financial residue of the fight that you did. And you're sitting in this aftermath of carrying both the loss and the money. And then there's another layer that we want to add to this. You start asking yourself, did I spend too much money? Should I have made a different decision or choice earlier? We're trying to buy more time in a way that ultimately wasn't kind. These are genuinely hard questions that pet owners face, and nobody gives you a Rubik's for. There's no right answer, but the questions still kind of come. I'm naming this because I think a lot of people feel ashamed about the financial piece. Like they're supposed to be above caring about money when it comes to your beloved animal. But you've allowed the feeling of both things. You can have that. You're allowed to grieve the loss and acknowledge the financial stress of it. Those two things can coexist without you being a bad person. So here's something that they don't put in the grief pamphlets. When your pet dies, the house changes. And I don't just mean that it's quieter, though it kind of is in my situation. I mean the whole system shifts. The rhythms, the routines, the way the other animals behave, the way the humans move through the space. The other dogs in the house grieve. The other grief looks like behavioral changes. Maybe it's searching. Maybe it's like disrupted sleep. It's a little anxiety that shows up in new ways. And you're trying to support them while also trying to support yourself. And sometimes those things are in direct conflict because you're depleted. And then there's the humans in all of this. The humans in the house are grieving differently from each other. Grief is not synchronized. One person might be in an acute phase where someone else has moved in some kind of quiet, functional sadness. One person want to talk about it all the damn time, and the other one actually needs silence. Navigating that when you're both grieving is genuinely hard. There's also this strange grief that comes in the small daily moments. You reach to fill the bowl that doesn't need to be filled anymore. You start to move towards the door at the usual time, and you notice that spot that on the couch where they always sat. And you feel the absence in this like physical thing, physical space. It's the pictures that show up on your timeline. It's all the little things that you never thought about before. Grief is not a singular wave. It's not linear. It doesn't follow the 5 stages in some neat little timeline. It comes in when you're doing something completely unrelated and just fucking ambushes you. And for helpers who are used to holding space for other people's ambushes, I would say, being on the receiving end of one in your own kitchen in the middle of a random Tuesday or can feel so destabilizing in a very specific way. Because you know what it is, you can name it, and it still happened to you anyway. And somehow the knowing doesn't make it easier. Sometimes it just makes it lonelier. Okay, let me come back to you for now. Because I didn't tell you all of this just to tell you a sad story. I told you because I think it maps onto something that a lot of helpers are living and want to name and what I kind of see in a lot of them. Helpers are trained to manage. We are trained to assess, to intervene, to support, and to contain. And when that training is in your own bones, it starts to feel like a moral obligation that extends to everything, not just your clients or the people you help, but your family, your health, your animals, yourself. And if something goes wrong in any of these areas, there's a part of us that immediately runs to postmortem. What could I have done differently? What did I miss? What should I have known? That internal audit is a professional reflex that many of us have never turned off. And it gets activated in grief like double time, especially this unexpected grief space, especially when the grief carries financial consequences, especially the grief that happened in front of other people, where others watch, where others imagine that, what did you do wrong? Where someone else said something that landed harder than they knew. Here's what I want to offer you and what I've been slowly offering myself. Grief is not a clinical failure. Loss is not evidence that you did something wrong. In fact, you've tried. Fully, expressively, exhaustingly, you tried, and you still lost. This loss still does not mean that you failed at management. It means you loved something that was mortal. That's it. That's the whole sentence that I want to say. You are allowed to grieve your dog. You are allowed to grieve loudly or privately or inconsistently. To be fine one day and to be absolutely lost your shit the next. You could be fine for 3 weeks and then flip out for no obvious reason. Grief doesn't care about your credentials. It doesn't give you a pass because you know the Kubler-Ross model by heart. It shows up anyway. And the people around you, some of them will say that it's just a dog. And what they mean is, I don't have a reference point for this level of grief for an animal. What they don't understand is that for a lot of us, particularly helpers who may have complicated relationships with human intimacy, animals hold something irreplaceable. They are uncomplicated love. They don't need anything from you emotionally. They don't track your moods and keep score. They just show up every day and they're glad that you're there. And when you lose that, you lose something very specific, a very clean kind of love that is hard to find anywhere else. So no, it's not just a dog. It's a loss of a relationship that gave you something real. And I want to be honest with you about where this actually is for me. I'm still in this. Some days it feels like the house has adjusted, and then some days the absence is fresh again, and I'm back at the beginning. And that's normal. That's how grief actually works. Not like some checklist that you move through sequentially. The other dogs are still recalibrating. The house feels different in ways I can't fully articulate. There's still moments where I catch myself thinking about the medical decision that we made and having to consciously redirect towards what I know to be true. We did our best with what we knew and what we had at the time. That's enough, and it's going to be enough. I haven't fully processed the financial piece yet, not emotionally anyway, that is. Practically, we've moved forward. We've figured it out. But emotionally, there's something about having to spend a significant amount on something that ultimately didn't change the outcome that requires its own processing. I'm giving myself time with that anyway. I'm learning again in the way that helpers keep having to relearn the same thing over and over, that I'm allowed to not be okay. I'm allowed to be in the middle of something without having to resolve it. I'm allowed to be the person who knows a lot of grief or a lot about grief and also be actively just in it. Those things can be true at the same time. So before I let you go, I want to leave you with this. If you are a helper who's in the middle of something hard right now, a pet loss, a person loss, a loss of relationship, or a cumulative weight of a season that has asked too much of you, I want you to hear me say this. You are allowed to be in it, in the thick of it, in the middle of it, the messiness of it. You're not failing. You are a human, and you will always be human. If you're someone is in your life is grieving a pet or something else and you want to help, the most helpful thing that you can do is just witness without ranking it against any other kinds of grief. You don't need to fix it or conceptualize it or remind them that there are other animals out there. You just don't need to say anything. I mean, you could just say that you see them hurting, and that matters sometimes, but you don't need to fix it. And if you've been running on empty yourself and trying to appear, I'm fine, not just about a pet loss, but a loss of anything, I generally want to ask you, what are you not letting yourself grieve? What is sitting underneath the competence and the management and the forward motion that you need? I'll wait. I'm pretty sure you're thinking about it. And you know that. You know what it is. You've seen it in your clients. It waits until there's space and then it finds you. Give yourself the space before it has to make space for itself. I just want to say thank you for being here and allowing me to tell and share my story. This wasn't supposed to be a pity party or feel bad, but I think it's just something that we need to talk about as helpers. And this is where I've been. So until next time, I hope this was helpful, and make sure you share it with someone who needs to hear it. All right, my loves, that's another episode in the books, and I'm out. Now I need you to go drink some water, touch some grass, get a sip of sunlight, take a pause, and stop acting like your nervous system is optional. And yes, you are basically a houseplant with complicated emotions. If you needed this today, tell me about it, tell me what landed, hit follow, and send this to the I'm fine friend who is absolutely not fine, and you know who I'm talking about. And if you want to work with me, everything you need is linked in the show notes, because Auntie doesn't do energy sucking DMs. Okay, love you. Bye.